Um, all right. So we are still studying Hosea. I'm still kind of trying to really pin down how I want to go through these. There's a lot of information in each one of these, even the shorter ones. Hosea is one of the shorter ones. I don't know that I want to extend it to the point where we're reading every single verse, which I like to do, but I think maybe more than 2 weeks. I think what I'm going to try to do is maybe get one prophet in between each first Wednesday night service. I don't know, as a way to just organize, but I'll let y'all know. If some of the information you hear tonight sounds like repeat, again, that's kind of part of me trying to figure out how I want to do this to best introduce the history and the context and all those kinds of things. It's just some of it's going to sound repeat, and it's not intentional. It is maybe my lack of preparation. I don't know. Huh? Well, I mean, it may prove that I can't do it either.
I've read through it again, and I get the gist of it.
Yeah.
It's just wordy.
It's easy to get the point of these prophets in a short, even shorter than what we have written for us, because they are, and that's why I like them. They're straight to the point. I mean, they get there quick. I mean, the first 3 chapters of Hosea pretty much tells you everything you need to know. And then chapters 4 through the end of the book, it breaks it down, and I was going to talk about that a little bit, but kind of the attributes there are chapters 4 through 7 is basically this idea about God being holy. And you'll see that. We'll touch on some points through those 3 chapters. Chapters 8 through 10 is this idea of God being just. And, it's not solely that, but I think if you was to pull one thing out, that's what you would get. And then chapters 11 through 14 is this idea of God being loving or gracious. So there is kind of some divide there, and you can see in the language, some of those things. And it's not exclusive, it's not exclusive to those ideas, but I think the theme of those different groups of chapters linked together, or that's a pretty good outline. Maybe I could have talked about, one of the big things I talked about last week is the context, and maybe I talked about the first week too in the introduction into all the minor prophets, is this idea of context. What is the context of the time frame here? Meaning who the prophet is speaking to, what's going on around them, where are they at? Are they in Babylon? They're not in captivity, but just what is the specific place that they're at? Like Hosea is speaking solely to Israel, the northern kingdom, and he's not prophesying to Judah at all here. The next prophet we have is Joel. And we'll see that Joel is primarily speaking, or almost exclusively speaking, to the southern tribes, or Judah, if you will. Let's see. Oh, what we can see here with Hosea, one thing I didn't point out as far as the context goes, there's a lot going on here with the kings, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more, hopefully in depth tonight. I kind of touched on it the first week. Society as a whole right now, and I think that's the whole reason why God is sending these prophets, society as a whole it almost looks like it's at its end. It is so bad, the things that these people are doing, and these are God's people. Remember this. This is not Gentiles. These are not the Babylonians, the Assyrians. These are God's chosen people. Okay? That's what they are. And within the northern and southern tribes, it is pandemonium. Drama, daytime drama, TV type stuff, or dramatic movies that maybe they play in the theaters and stuff that kind of maybe depict some of this stuff. The assassinations, and the murders and all those things that are going on. But this is real life, and this is happening in real time. And these are God's people doing these things to God's people. I mean, well, look what we're doing. This is the way you ought to act. This is how you win God's favor. No, that's actually not what it is. It's the opposite. And what the Assyrians, what everyone will see, including the Israelites soon, is that it is the exact opposite of what God wants. And because of that, and God's patience, God is sending messengers, prophets, to these people to try to get them to see their error in their way and to turn from their error. That is the whole point of all these things that are going on now. And so God has given these people every opportunity He can to allow these people to correct their error. And we'll eventually see that doesn't work out, but we're not there quite yet.
It must have been pretty bad. But looking at us today, society today, the world today, it's pretty bad to me.
It is.
It was worse then.
I'm about to say it was worse, but you look at Hosea 4, the first 5 verses. There's no truth, there's no knowledge of God, there's lying, there's killing, there's stealing, there's committed adultery, there's the blood. I think the verse talks about bloodshed, touches bloodshed, and it's murder for murder. You look right here in Alexandria, we've had 4 murders in the last 72 hours.
That sounds like a headline out of the paper today.
Yeah. It really does. I mean, you look in California, we had, 3 mass shootings over the weekend, or 2 mass shootings and another, permeating our society. I don't see how anything could be much worse than what it was today at Hosea's,
I think there are a lot of similarities.
And,
if you look at all the things.
I'm not saying it's a exact parallel, but it goes back to the very root of the problem. He tells us in Hosea is, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. We as a society has left the knowledge of the Almighty God out.
No.
Not just as a church, or not just as Christians. We see religion has been watered down, but our moral fiber in our country today is as bad, or at least as worse off as the fall of the nations in ancient history is any worse than what we're looking at today.
Yeah, I mean that it is bad. You can't call a woman and a man a man.
Yeah.
When you're allowed, when you go down that path, you have to allow everything. So now, if I want to be a dog or a cat or a horse I don't want to be responsible for my actions, then I will call myself whatever I can to get out of the responsibility for that. And it's chaos. That's what it is. And you see that in Hosea. It is pure chaos. Every time they turn around, it's chaos.
We're teaching our children from knee high up. No.
But society is, yes.
Yeah. I guess the Lord suffered long with these people for several hundred years.
Yeah, He did.
And I guess that's what He's doing for us now. And I don't know.
I didn't write the verse down, but we have a New Testament verse that speaks to that very point that you're making there.
This country was established in 1776, so we're about 250 years roughly.
Right.
I guess we're still relatively young, but he's suffered long with us, and it's getting worse and worse. I don't know what happened, but.
And I think that one thing that's so sad is in Hosea 4, he says, I will also forget your children. That's sad to think about the fact that the children is going to suffer because of our lack of standards today.
That's exactly what
just to revisit the kings, the 6 kings. So there's 6 kings that were on the throne during Hosea's time. And we'll go, if you will, to 2 Kings. Oh, wrong Bible. I have this Bible only for one thing, and if I don't set it to the side, it'll cause me a problem. Sorry, I hate doing that, but 2 Kings. I read through some of this. I just want to talk about it again because I think it's extremely important to see everything that's going on here with these kings. So you have Jeroboam the second. Jeroboam the second. Let me turn there. First Kings. Anyway, I don't need to turn it. So he's first mentioned in 1 Kings 11:26, I think. It says that Jeroboam, 14 verse 24. This is 2 Kings. 14 verse 24. I'll get there. He did evil in the sight of the Lord, and he did not part from all the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. It does say, 25, he restored the border of Israel from the entrance of Hamath as far as the sea of Arabah, according to the word of the Lord, the God he spoke to. Jeroboam did evil in the sight of the Lord, just like he spoke of all these kings that we're going to talk about after Jeroboam. He did do evil in the sight of the Lord, but Jeroboam, the best I can tell, was the last king in this succession here that was actually useful to God, that God actually used for a purpose. And I may be missing something there, but there's not actually much said about the next 5 judges. So, but Jeroboam did have success against, or military victories against Syria, and he was used here, as we just read, to preserve Israel to some extent, to restore a border, to preserve it. So Jeroboam second, I hope I'm not getting these mixed up, was able to have some success against their enemies. Let's see. So he took the throne from his father, the normal succession of things. That is the way God, let me say, maybe not say it that way. That's the natural occurrence that God set up, I think. Is that an okay way to put that? I'm not speaking out of turn. So you have Zechariah come in, and that's verse 8, in the 38th year of Azariah, king of Judah. So that's the king in the southern region. Zechariah, the son of Jeroboam, became king over Israel and Samaria for 6 months, 180 days. But he did evil in the sight of the Lord, same thing as Jeroboam, his father, as his father had done. He did not part from the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. Then the next king that we have after Zechariah is Shalem. In verse 10 it says, Then Shalem, the son of Jabesh, conspired against him and struck him before the people and killed him and reigned in his place. So now we have a problem. Now we have people assassinating kings that God put in place to usurp God's authority, basically, and put themselves in a spot that they were not supposed to take. And so what now is going on with Shalem, and you're going to see this with the next couple kings, Shalem is saying, I know your will for your people better than you do. And so I'm going to be selfish. I'm going to have evil motives. And I'm going to go kill this man that you put in the throne. And I'm going to put myself there because I know better than you. And we do that a lot. Society does that a lot in our lives today, don't we? We read Scripture, we study, we come face to face with God's will for us, and then a lot of times, sometimes, whatever you want to call it, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I, in my own mind, either justify the thing I want to do, so I kind of just completely disregard what God said, or two, in my mind, I'm kind of like, well, that doesn't make good earthly sense. How can that actually play out the way that you want it to, God? Because we are not able to see things through like God does. So we're very short-sighted. I'm very short-sighted. So when God tells me to do something, basically shows me the conclusion of what that's going to be, I look at that and I say, well, there's no way that this action, there's no way, Gideon, that with 300 people, I can go up against this big, huge army and defeat this big, huge army. But we miscalculate. We think less of God than God actually deserves. We don't give God enough credit. So whatever Shalem is doing here, and it's maybe out of just selfish motive, he wants to be on the throne. Make sure that I see myself on that throne, regardless of what God thinks. All right. So Shalem takes the throne. 2 Kings, let me see. Then 13, Shalem, son of Jabesh, became king in the 39th year of Uzziah, king of Judah, and he reigned for 1 month. Probably didn't work out the way that he thought it would work out. I mean, 1 month is even shorter than the previous king of 180 days. Which 30 days is...
Wasn't worth it.
I don't know what you could even get done as a king in 30 days, right? He did manage to disobey God.
Yeah.
He did do that. So, I guess kudos to him if you want to look at it that way. So then Menachem comes around. Menachem, let's see. Verse 14. We're in 2 Kings chapter 15 still. All these kings are pretty much listed right here at the end of 2 Kings 15. Verse 14. Then Menachem, son of Gad, or Gadi, I'm not sure how to, son of Jabesh in Samaria, and killed him and became king in his place. Let's see. So Menachem actually died a natural death. Pekah, 2 Kings 15:23. Pekah, in the 15th year of Azariah, king of Judah, Pekah, I think I'm saying that right, son of Menahem, became king over Israel and Samaria and reigned for 2 years. So there we have a 2-year reign. It did say, verse 24, that he did evil in the sight of the Lord. He did not depart from the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which he made Israel sin. I meant to talk about that before. But what is this idea that these kings are making Israel sin? Isn't the people, don't they have own free will? Can't they for themselves determine their behavior, whether they follow God or not?
Yeah, but the kings allowed the priests to go into corruption. They allowed the taxation and the other problems. The kings gave the environment for the disobedience of God to the people. They made the opportunity to sin available through their policies and various campaigns and this, that, and the other. And a lot of it had to do with corrupt priesthood.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, when Jonah finally got to Nineveh and he preached and the king heard it, he made a decree.
He did.
They were all going to do this.
That's right.
So the king was...
Does that same idea follow true for us today?
Absolutely.
No? Should it?
No, it should not. But
okay. All right, sorry.
You look at the rulers of the Supreme Court, and you can look at the rise and decline of history throughout our nation, based on more so the Supreme Court than any other act of Congress, because that's where the legislation comes up into.
Would the Israelites have the same responsibility that we have today to obey God rather than man?
Yes.
To obey God first. They would, right?
Yes.
And they did still have their own free will, right?
They could have chosen to go against the king's decree.
They could have chose to obey God.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what their king said or did, right?
But again, you know, look at our society today. People would much rather follow some person, obviously, or some group of people that listen to what the Lord says. It's just human nature. You sound pretty good to me, so I'm going to go with your way, whatever you think.
I think a lot of that has to also do, people like to follow people, you're right, with this idea where the people ask for a king. Hey, we want a king, we want to be just like them, but they wanted somebody in charge.
It's somebody I can see.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. God wasn't good enough for them.
That's just human nature.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. So you probably have a lot of that going on. And they probably are kind of setting the example for the people. Well, he's king. If he's doing it, the priests are doing it, then it's probably okay for me to do. But at the end of the day, all that is justification for your actions. It's not obeying God's law, God's rule.
Broad is the way that leads to destruction, and narrow is the way that leads to life eternal.
So one of the lessons that we can get out of Hosea here is that very idea that although we spoke earlier in the class, and what we're talking about now with these kings, we have Congress, the president, whatever you want to, all governors, all those things. We have people in all those positions throughout this country that we see every day doing the wrong thing. They are not the example that we should follow. So if we're looking up to those people and emulating those people, then we're going to probably be wrong more than we're right. Most often.
Yeah. Well, the heroes are in Hollywood and on the sports field today. That's where the heroes are. And whatever they're doing, it must be good. But look at them, they're rich.
Rich, great lives.
So I'm going in with them.
Yeah.
And people don't realize that's not real life. It's just not real.
It's not real life, and even, no matter what it is, it's very temporary. It's short-lived. It's always short-lived.
Even for them.
Even for them, yeah, you're right.
The Presley girl that died at 55 or whatever she was.
Yes, right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's short-lived.
That is, yeah.
He himself died at, Elvis died at 41 or something. I don't know. That's short-lived.
Yeah. And that's that idea that I was trying to get at earlier, is this idea where we look at God's way for us and we say there's no way that can work out, and I think we just are fixated on the physical things in life. We're not thinking about long term. Hey, my soul is in jeopardy based on these actions that.
I understand what you want me to do right now, but what's way down the road? That's where your faith comes in.
That's right.
You got to just trust the Lord.
That's right.
It's not his job to sit down and explain to me what's going to happen way down the road.
Yeah, it's not.
Just follow him, and it will twist and turn, but you'll get there.
That's right. And God, throughout Scriptures, we can see has always looked out for His people, has always taken care of His people. We see that play out time and time again. So there should be no doubt in our minds that is indeed, what the case will be. And it may not be what we want or how we want it, but it will work out towards God's end, one way or the other. So
We do learn by our experiences.
Yep, we do, yeah.
If we
If we're smart, we do.
If we're smart, we do. Well, there's been times in my life where, like me and Aaron's had to make decisions about money. And it's been hard sometimes to write, the check on the first day of the week. In our mind, this is what we said we're going to obligate to the Lord. It's been hard, especially when we was in the military. It's really hard. But it always worked out. It always, but it would have been real easy to say, well, there's no way. I'm not going to have enough money by the end of the week, so I'm not writing that check.
you can look back.
Yeah, experience.
When you get older and you've already experienced that, you're not going to get in that again.
And that's what we have to do with all our decisions.
Yes.
Is we have to have faith in God, that God is going to take care of us. That's right.
Pray for God to build your faith.
And that's one of the other themes throughout the book of Hosea. These men, kings, people have completely removed themselves from dependence on God and have solely based their faith really in men. And these men, the Assyrian king, is a man who's already been in Israel, basically threatening to take it over. And, one of the kings, we'll see here in a minute, one of the kings actually pays him off to get him out of Israel. And it works, but it only works for a little while, And I just wonder how that story would have been wrote. I've always wondered this. Had that king said, I'm not paying you off. I'm going to God in prayer. I'm going to go to the temple and I'm going to pray to God. What do you think would be the end result there? It would have completely changed.
It would have made a difference.
It made a big difference. Yeah, that's right. And we do that sometimes in our lives. We depend on men in man's ways instead of God's ways, because we, in our short-sightedness, think that that's going to work out better for us, and it doesn't. But you have a lot of those things going on. So Pekah, I think I already did that. He made Israel sin. We talked about that. And then Pekah comes along and murders Pekah. Let's see. Then Pekah, the son of Remaliah, I think, his officer, conspired against him and struck him in Samaria, in the castle of the king's house, with Argob and Arai, and went with him. And with him were 50 men of the Gildites, and he killed him and became king in his place. Now the rest of the Acts, Pekah, okay. And then Hosea. I may have been saying Hosea last week. It's not Hosea. I think it's Hosea. Hosea actually murders Pekah. 2 Kings 15 verse 30. Let's see. Then Hosea, the son of to death, and became king in his place, and in the 20th year of Jotham, the son of Uzziah. I wanted to read this part. Verse 32, in the 2nd year of Pekah, the son of Remaliah, king of Israel, Jotham, the son of Uzziah, king of Judah, became king. Verse 25, no, that's not what I wanted to read, sorry. Let's see. No, that's it there. Okay, let's go back to Hosea and kind of go through these. Next Wednesday is the first Wednesday of the month. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. All right. So chapter 4, verse 1. I kind of defined these earlier. Chapter 4 through 7 is this idea about God being holy. It says, "Listen to the word of the Lord, O sons of Israel, for the Lord has a case against the inhabitants of the land. Because there is no faithfulness or kindness or knowledge to God or knowledge of God, in the land. There is swearing, deception, murder, stealing, and adultery. They employ violence so that bloodshed follows bloodshed." We know that is at least talking about the kings assassinating themselves, murdering each other to get the throne. "Therefore the land mourns, and everyone who lives in it languishes along with the beasts of the field and the birds of the sky, and also the fish of the sea despair." Now, I don't know, I tried to look this up. I didn't see that language nowhere else in the scripture where actually stated that not only the people were languishing, but the beast, the fish of the sea were languishing. Y'all have any thoughts on that? That come up to you at all?
Well, I noticed that when I read it.
Yeah.
Even the animals are in a depression or a slump.
Yeah.
What's next?
Yeah. And I couldn't find anything else on it, but it is unique. I tried to look it up. The only thing that came up was this in Hosea. There was no other mention where, along with people languishing because of their sins, also the animals and all those things. So I thought that was unique. Of course, verse 6 of chapter 4, it's kind of the theme of Hosea. My people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And a lot of that applies today as well. I mean, we are, even members of the Lord's church can fall under this, where there's this lack of knowledge. And I think a lot of times it's a lack of effort. Sometimes maybe it's a lack of studying or being taught correctly. I mean, and that is caused by generations of people. I'm a first generation Christian. So I wasn't taught anything growing up in regards, to what we're talking about. But there are generations of Christians that I know. Aaron is second generation, and there are things that you miss because you're new. You're a new Christian. Sure, I get that. There are things we all miss just because sometimes we miss them. But I think there is a problem, generation by generation. There is a problem of sharing knowledge, and I don't mean that just through, hey, we're studying about something. I also mean by example. I might bring my kids to church every time the doors are open. I'm not that person. That matters almost more, or at least as much, as whether you get this or not.
The example probably does more for you than the statement.
Yeah. It's very important. Yeah.
I think there's absolutely there's a generational gap that goes in the negative. We need to turn it around and make a generational gap in the positive. Yeah, we do. Yeah, I agree with that. And I think you have that going on here in the book of Hosea too. This didn't just start. This has been a long time coming. I mean, they didn't go from 0 to 60 and they were just faithful one day and terrible the next, murdering each other. There's been decades of time where these people have just continued to get worse and worse. A lot like our country today. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Now I can't even call you a man and her a woman, you know. Or I can't define it. Define a woman for me. Well, I don't know what a woman is, you know. That it's ridiculous. It's comical. And it's not picking a side, Republican, Democrat, any of that. It's not any of that. But just the notion that we can't even define what a woman is. I mean, where are we at? I think we're at the place that Romans chapter 1 discusses. In Romans chapter 1, in the context, verse 28, they failed to contain God in their knowledge. God gave over to the base and reprobate mind to the things that are not convenient. And if you'll notice the next verse, being filled with all unrighteousness. He leaves Romans 1 in verse 29, filled with all unrighteousness. And then he says sexual immorality, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, envy, envy, strife, murder, so on and so forth. And I think that's exactly a parallel passage to what you see in the Hosea. Is God finally got enough.
That's right. And
he gave them over to do things which was not convenient. And I understand the context of Romans chapter 1 is where the women left their vow of the national pregnancy and so forth. But he lists that all unrighteousness. And then he says murder, envy, strife, maliciousness, backbiters, haters of God. You know, there's a whole list of things there in Romans chapter 1 that shows what happens to us when we leave God out.
So I got one thing I want to go back to, and I'm going to run out of time. We discussed this idea that one of the kings had paid off one of the Assyrian kings. Chapter 7, verse 11, it says, so Ephraim has become like a silly dove without sense. And that kind of goes with what I was just saying, this idea where it's just like, it's nonsense, pure nonsense. And it says, the reason I'm saying that they're like a silly dove is because instead of coming to me and seeking me, it says they call to Egypt and they go to Assyria. You, God's people, need protection. You go to the very people you need protection from to get protection. They're the ones you got a problem with. But you're going to them, paying homage to them to protect you instead of coming to me, God. God says, I have a problem with that. Let's see.
Again, demonstrates a lack of faith.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. Yep. Chapter 8, verse 4. They have set up kings, but not by me. And that's in reference to what we talked about pretty extensively both this week and last week, this idea where they were murdering each other to get on the throne. It says they have appointed princesses, but I did not know it. I don't think it's saying, the verse is saying that God didn't actually know it happened. God didn't approve of it.
He didn't acknowledge it.
These were decisions made by man, not by God. Let's see. Chapter 8, verse 12. Though I wrote for him 10,000 precepts of my law, they are regarded as a strange thing. Let's see. verse 13, sorry. As for my sacrificial gifts, they sacrifice the flesh and eat it, but the Lord has taken no delight in them. Now he will remember their iniquity and punish them for their sins. They will return to Egypt. For Israel has forgotten his Maker and built palaces, and Judah has multiplied fortified cities, but I will send a fire on its cities that it may consume its dwellings. Let's see. So this chapter 10, this reminded me of Luke 12, where the guy was building a bigger barns to store up more stuff, and then his life was called upon him. This stuck out to me. Chapter 10, verse 1, Israel in its luxuriant vine, he produces fruit for himself. The more his fruit, the more altars he made. The richer his land, the better he made the sacred pillars. But their heart is faithless. So they're having all this increase, and they're doing things with it, but it means nothing. It says, the middle of chapter, or verse 2, now they must bear their guilt. The Lord will break down their altars and destroy their sacred pillars. They built a house on sand, is what they did. They built a house on nothing. It means nothing. And God will tear it down, he says. Let's see. Back to this other reference. So, chapter 10, verse 6. It says, the thing itself will be carried to Assyria as tribute to King Jareb. Let's see. Because you have trusted in your way. Verse 13, because you have trusted in your way, in your numerous warriors, therefore atonement will arise among your people. Let's see. I underlined chapter 12, verse 2.
Before you get to 12, look at 11. God still loves Israel.
Yeah. God yearns over his people, yeah.
Chapter 11 of Hosea is a ardent chapter of love that God has for his people. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son. See, God loves us even when we're sinners. He doesn't condone us. He doesn't save us. He may not bless us, but he still loves us. And I think you see that set forth here in Hosea chapter 11. When God says, I loved him as a child. I taught him to walk and I did all these things for him. I just can't compromise my love for him. I'm going to still love him. So, God still loves us even though we do things that is not pleasing to him.
Yeah, chapter 8 of, I'm glad you brought that up because I skipped over that on accident. Chapter 11, verse 8, it says, how can I give you up, O Ephraim? How can I surrender you, O Israel? How can I make you like Admah? How can I treat you like Zebulun? My heart is turned over within me. All my compassions are kindled. God is lamenting over his people here. God is extremely upset over his people and what they have become.
Notice a verse that always stuck out in my mind in verse 9 of that chapter. He says, for I am God and not man. That's one of the attributes of God that man doesn't. Man would just write you off. Man said, look, you've done this to me, your fault. Get out of my sight.
He says, I will not execute my fierce anger. I will not destroy Ephraim again.
And he says, for I
am God.
I'm not like man. Mm-hmm. God is not like man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Chapter 12. I'm not going to have time. So I want to go back real quick. I will spend more. I'm going to spend more time on these. I have not. There's just too much there. Chapter 5. It says, hear this, verse 1. Hear this, O priest, give heed, O house of Israel. Listen, O house of the king. For the judgment applies to you, for you have been a snare at Mizpah, and a net spread out on Tabor. The revolters have gone deep in depravity, but I will chastise all of them. What is this snare at Mizpah? What is this he's talking about? Y'all have a chance to look that up? So, Samuel was actually made king at Mizpah. That's what I brought this Bible for.
You'll put up there on that snare. Says Hosea 6:9, and as troops of robbers wait for a man, so the company of priests murder in the way by consent while they commit lewdness.
Yeah. So they were dealing unjustly with one another. They were robbing each other. They were cheating each other. That's what they were doing. The thing that I didn't fully understand is what was the reference of Mizpah there. Samuel was made king at a place called Mizpah. Where's that verse? Let's see. Oh, I got it right here. Genesis chapter 31. That's the account of Samuel being made king there at Mizpah. Or two, the other option is Mizpah in Benjamin, which is, I guess, Tabor. And it's a mountain at the southeastern edge of Jezreel Valley. The reference must have been to the well-known events. You know, I don't think God is actually talking the physical Mizpah. I think it's just the idea there. He's using Mizpah because people would understand that. But he's telling the people, you know, y'all been a snare, and they were in fact dealing treacherously with one another, and I think that is the point there. I just wondered if y'all had a chance to look that up.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was an interesting thing to me. Is there anything else that I missed? I'm sure there are a lot of things that I missed, but that stand out to you that I didn't get to, that I overlooked? I was going to try to do these in 2. I am going to do them in 3 from now on, at least 3, because there's a lot there, and I feel like I may have not, definitely didn't have enough time. 2 weeks is not enough time. So,
Well, you pointed out a lot that I didn't see. You really have. So I appreciate that.
okay.
Yeah, so if you take 3 or 4 weeks, it's okay with us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, that will conclude our class for tonight. Following prophets. Edgar Bay.
First and last verse.
3, 2, 6. Let's see. So, all of us in this room, I believe, have been baptized, have obeyed the calling, except one, and he's 4 today. So, yeah, yes. So in trying to think about an invitation tonight, you know, I was trying to remember who my audience will be. In chapter 5, Hosea chapter 5, verse 15. It says, I will go away and return to my place until they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face. In their affliction, they will earnestly seek me. This is God speaking to his people, or God speaking of his people. And what God is saying, you know, basically we know these people are a sinful group of people. They murder one another, they steal from one another, they everything that you could think of, they were probably involved in. And God is extremely upset with them. Now, we did read, you know, back in chapter 11 where God is lamenting over his people. And he's like, how can I give you up, O Ephraim? How can I surrender you, O Israel? I mean, God he is tormented with this idea that he's going to have to pass this judgment on his people. And I think it's safe to say that God doesn't want that for us. He sent us, after all, he sent his son to die on the cross for us. And we have all been washed, and we have all, you know, said that we believe Jesus is the Son of God, and we have all made a vow to follow him. And if I'm misspeaking, please tell me. But and that's a general. That's not a detailed account of that. But basically, we have all acknowledged God, and we have all acknowledged His will for us. But we are also still people. We also still sin. I sin sometimes every day. Maybe there are sins I don't even know about. Job had that prayer where he prayed for sins that he was unaware of, for his children too. So we are flawed. We are not perfect. Which is the very reason why we need Jesus, why we need God. And God has laid everything out for us in a way that we know what His will for us is. We can obey it. Sure, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to have bumps in the road. We're going to have things that we have to repent of. All those things are going to happen. I think that's true for everyone. I think that's a safe statement. And I think we all have enough sense to know that. God here is fixing to put these people through affliction. And what He's saying here is that, well, when they go through this affliction, then they'll know. Then they're going to seek me. But we don't have to wait. And that's the point that I want to get across to you tonight. We don't have to wait for that affliction. God is very patient. We see that with His people. God has been patient with His people for a long time. Well, since the beginning, God has been very patient with His people. And God is patient with us. It's no different. And we don't, as a people, have to get to this point. All we have to do is recognize our fault. All we have to do is recognize where our lives are not in line with God's will for us. And if it's not in line with God's will for us, then we're in the wrong. God's not in the wrong. God didn't get it wrong. God didn't make a mistake. We have. We justified our actions. We wanted something we couldn't have within God's law. So we either just get it and disregard God's law, or we justify it somehow. And either way, it's wrong. And we have a way of repenting of those things, of coming to God, asking for forgiveness. And He's just and He's righteous, and He will forgive us of those sins, no matter what it is. And that's the beautiful thing about our relationship with God, is He's a loving, caring, forgiving God. So if you're in need of those things, or maybe you haven't put that much thought into it, and you need to go home and you need to pray to God about something, hey, we have today. Today is the only opportunity we need to be right with God. And it can be done just that fast. But if you do need anything from the men or someone else in this congregation, please come forward as we stand and sing.